came too late. Mother's Day was supposed to be just another quiet Sunday. I brewed coffee for one in my silent house, trying not to dwell on the emptiness that's lingered since Harold passed 3 years ago. The night before, my daughter Olivia had called. Her voice was polite but distant. "Mom, we're having brunch at David's mother's house tomorrow. 1 o'clock sharp. No warmth. No please join us. Just a calendar reminder." When I arrived, Patricia's driveway overflowed with luxury cars. Laughter drifted from the backyard of her magazine-perfect home. White marble, fresh flowers, everything elegant. I spotted Olivia sitting close to Patricia, the two of them sharing a private joke. David was at the grill, every bit the devoted son Patricia had raised. Patricia greeted me with a flawless smile. Olivia gave me a quick nod and pointed me to a chair at the far end of the table, well away from the main conversation. Then came the gifts. Olivia stood, eyes shining. David handed Patricia a velvet box and an envelope. Inside, a diamond ring that caught the sunlight and tickets for a 2-week Mediterranean cruise. First class. Patricia gasped, tears welling as everyone applauded. Finally, David said, "And for Grandma, Colleen." Olivia approached with a small gift bag. Inside was a $5 plastic flower and a plain card that read, "Happy Mother's Day. Thanks for everything, Mom." The table fell silent. I forced a smile. "It's lovely." "Thank you." But Olivia had already turned back to Patricia, animatedly describing cruise destinations. I sat there holding that plastic flower, feeling smaller than I had in years. An hour later, I left. Olivia barely looked up. "Thanks for coming, Mom. Drive safe." The drive home was a blur. I couldn't stop replaying the moment. Her radiant face as she gave Patricia that ring and those tickets. When was the last time she'd looked at me with that kind of joy? That night, I stared at the plastic flower on my kitchen table. 43 years of motherhood reduced to a clearance aisle afterthought. The next morning, my phone lit up with 28 calls from Olivia. Her message was frantic. "Please, Mom, don't sell the company. I'm 67 years old. I thought I'd already lived through every kind of heartbreak. I was wrong. A week of sleepless questions. Being determined to understand my daughter's love, or lack of it, I walked into my home office, the place where every record of my life's work lived. Contracts, tax returns, financial statements, the proof of decades of effort. That sleepless night stretched into an entire week. I couldn't shake the image of that $5 plastic flower, or the way Olivia had looked at Patricia with such genuine affection. It felt like a weight pressing on my chest. I needed answers. Not a confrontation, but the kind of answers hidden in numbers and old receipts. On Saturday morning, I pulled open filing cabinets I hadn't touched in years. Harold used to laugh at my habit of keeping every scrap of paperwork. "You never know when you'll need proof," I'd tell him. I never thought I'd need proof of my own motherhood. The first folder was labeled Olivia, college. Tuition bills, room and board statements, bookstore receipts, even parking tickets. Nearly $47,000 in total. I'd even bought her a car junior year when hers broke down. Next came the wedding O&D file. The venue, flowers, catering, her gown, photography. $58,000 for one perfect day. David's parents contributed a single case of wine, then the house records. Olivia and David had wanted a riverside address, well beyond their combined income. I co-signed the mortgage. 2 years later, when David's business faltered, I quietly made 6 months of payments so they wouldn't lose it. They never knew. Car loans followed, 3 vehicles over the years, each temporary until they got back on their feet. Somehow the repayments never came, and I never pressed. But the real punch landed with the emergency fund. In 2019, David's landscaping company teetered on bankruptcy. Olivia called me sobbing. That same day, I wired $85,000. No contracts, no conditions, just a mother helping her child. 6 months later, they bought a boat. When I totaled everything, college, wedding, house, cars, bailouts, and 1,000 smaller gifts, it came to nearly $400,000 over 15 years. And on Mother's Day, I received a plastic flower. The money wasn't what hurt. I've been successful. I can afford generosity. What hurt was realizing my generosity had turned invisible. expected, taken for granted. Scrolling through our recent texts only deepened the ache. Can you pick up the dry cleaning? David needs to borrow your truck. The kids need school supplies. Always requests, never a simple, "How are you, Mom?" Meanwhile, Patricia received diamond rings and Mediterranean cruise tickets. I opened my laptop and checked the mortgage on their house, still in my name. The payments still drafted automatically from my business account. I scanned bank statements. David's lawn service maintained 3 of my commercial properties at 30% above market rate, a quiet favor I'd never mentioned. Olivia earned $1,200 a month for part-time bookkeeping I'd created for her. Maybe 6 hours of work. It hit me then. They weren't just my daughter and son-in-law. They were, in every practical sense, my dependents. Adults in their 30s who had built their lifestyle on the foundation of my silent support. The moment I took back my life, somehow I had become the villain in my own family story, the distant mother who just didn't get them, all while they lived on my quiet generosity. I shut the laptop and looked around my office. Awards lined the wall. Plaques from the Chamber of Commerce, framed newspaper articles about the company I'd built from scratch. There were no recent photos of me with Olivia. She'd stopped wanting those years ago. The clock read 4:30 p.m. I'd spent 8 hours digging through paperwork, and the truth was impossible to ignore. I had spent years trying to buy my daughter's love. All I'd taught her was that I was a wallet, not a mother. My phone buzzed, a text from Olivia. "Mom, David's truck broke down. Can we borrow yours for a few days?" For the first time in decades, I didn't immediately say yes. I simply replied, "I'll think about it." That night I made a decision. Monday morning, I sat across from Margaret Chen, my attorney of 12 years. Her office overlooked downtown. From her window, I could see the building that represented my life's work. "Colleen, you look exhausted," she said, settling behind her desk. "What's going on?" I'd rehearsed my words all weekend, but they still felt heavy. "I want to talk about selling my business." Margaret blinked. "Hartwell Consulting? You've spent 30 years building that. It's your legacy." "That's exactly why," I answered. "I need to understand what happens to my family if I sell." For the next hour, I explained everything. The mortgage I quietly paid, the inflated contracts with David's landscaping company, the bookkeeping job I'd created for Olivia. Margaret listened carefully, pen scratching across her legal pad. "So," she said at last, "if you sell, David loses his main commercial contract, Olivia loses that bookkeeping income, and they'd have to qualify for their own mortgage." "Exactly." She studied me. "What started this? Last time we spoke, you were planning to expand. Maybe even bring Olivia in as a partner." I told her about Mother's Day, the diamond ring and Mediterranean cruise for Patricia, the $5 plastic flower for me. Years of feeling like an ATM. Margaret winced but kept her voice steady. "And you're selling the company to see where your daughter really stands?" I nodded. "Right now, I don't know if she loves me or just my checkbook." "There are gradual ways to shift your support," she suggested. "No," I said firmly. "Gradual just gives time to adapt. If I do this, it has to be clean." We spent another hour outlining the plan. Margaret had brokers who could move quickly, 3 to 6 months for a quiet sale. I insisted on total confidentiality until the deal closed. "Once you sign, there's no turning back," she warned. "Are you ready for how Olivia might react?" I pictured the cheap plastic flower on my kitchen counter. "I'm ready to find out who she really is." That afternoon, I began subtle changes. I called David's landscaping company. "I'm reviewing budgets," I said evenly. "I'll be requesting competitive bids." Panic flashed in his voice. "Mrs. Hartwell, we can lower our rates." "It's not about the rates," I replied. "It's about exploring options." Next, I contacted my smaller clients who used Olivia for bookkeeping. "I'm restructuring my referrals," I told them. "Please secure new services within 60 days. Professional, calm, no personal explanation." For the first time in years, I felt the ground shift, back under my own feet. When my daughter crossed the line, that evening Olivia called, her voice tight with worry. "Mom, Mrs. Patterson said you're not referring bookkeepers anymore. Did I do something wrong?" "Not at all, dear," I said evenly. "I'm just simplifying my business operations. But that's my income. I'm sure you'll find other opportunities. You're very capable." A long pause. "Mom, is everything okay?" You've been acting strange. I'm fine, Olivia. Just busy with business matters. When I hung up, I stared at the plastic flower on my kitchen table. For the first time in years, I felt something I'd nearly forgotten. Control. Not the kind that comes from writing checks, but the kind that comes from choosing my own path. Over the next few weeks, I slipped into a new routine. Meetings with potential buyers, financial reviews, quietly unraveling every tie that linked my company to my daughter's lifestyle. Margaret, my attorney, managed the legal side, but I stayed involved in every decision. The hardest part was the secrecy. I'd never been good at keeping things from Olivia, but this felt necessary. 3 weeks later, David called. Mrs. Hartwell, I heard a rumor at the Chamber of Commerce. Are you selling your business? My heart pounded, but my voice stayed calm. People gossip, David. You know how it is. But if you were selling, you'd tell us, right? It would affect our contracts. If and when I make major decisions, you'll be informed appropriately. That night, Olivia appeared at my door, looking exhausted in a sweatshirt I remembered from her college days. Mom, we need to talk, she said, stepping past me. David's contracts, my bookkeeping clients, now rumors about you selling the business. What's happening? I sat across from her, hands folded. I'm reevaluating my priorities. What does that mean? It means I'm 67 and tired of carrying everyone else's responsibilities. Her face flushed. Is this about Mother's Day? About the gift? I'm sorry if it seems small, but we're really tight on money. I almost laughed. Tight on money while living in a house I paid for, driving cars I bought, working jobs I arranged. But I only said, this isn't about one day, Olivia. It's about understanding what really matters. She left 20 minutes later, frustrated and confused. I watched her drive away in the car I'd co-signed for, heading back to the house where I still paid the mortgage, though not for much longer. The call came on a Tuesday morning as I reviewed the final purchase agreement. Margaret had found a buyer, a larger consulting firm eager to expand. The offer was generous, more than I'd hoped. Just as I signed the preliminary papers, my phone rang. Caller ID showed my home number, strange since I wasn't home. Hello, Mrs. Hartwell, a man said. This is James Morrison from Morrison & Associates. We're handling the acquisition of Hartwell Consulting. A chill ran through me. I'm sorry, who? He repeated his name. I was given this number by your assistant. They authorized me to discuss the sale details. My stomach dropped. Only one person had a key to my house. Only one would answer my phone and claim to be my assistant. Thank you for calling, Mr. Morrison, I said sharply. Please direct all communication through my attorney, Margaret Chen. I hung up and immediately dialed my home. After 4 rings, Olivia answered. Mom's house, this is Olivia. What are you doing in my house? Silence. Then, Mom, I thought you were at a meeting. I just came by to water your plants. I don't have plants that need watering. Another pause, longer this time. Okay, fine. I was looking for something. David said you might have old tax documents he needs. I answered the phone because it wouldn't stop ringing. I thought it might be important. Her excuses sounded thin even to her own ears. I'm coming home, I said. We need to talk. The 15-minute drive from Margaret's office felt endless. I replayed the call, the way Olivia had posed as my assistant to gain information about the sale. The audacity of it left me cold. When I pulled into the driveway, her car was still there. I found her in my home office, papers scattered across my desk. She looked up, guilt and defiance battling on her face. Find what you were looking for? I asked quietly. She gestured toward the documents. Mom, you're really selling the company? I began gathering the purchase agreements and financial statements, documents she had no right to see. These are private business matters, I said, my voice steady. For the first time, the balance of power had shifted, and she knew it. Drawing the line. Private? Mom, this affects all of us, Olivia said, her voice trembling. David's business depends on your contracts. My income comes from your referrals. You can't just sell without talking to us. I stopped gathering papers and really looked at her, 35 years old, sitting in my chair at my desk, demanding explanations about my company. When had I let this happen? Actually, Olivia, I can sell my business without consulting anyone. It's mine. But what about us? What about our family? I repeated her words slowly. What about our family? When did you start caring about that? Her cheeks flushed. I've always cared. You're my mother, Am I? Or am I your bank? Silence. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked, life carrying on as if nothing had changed. She tried again, her voice small. If you're upset about Mother's Day, I already apologized. We can do something special next year. Next year, I echoed. Always next year when it comes to treating me with respect. I sat across from her, seeing my daughter clearly for the first time. Do you know how much I've given you and David over the years? She shifted uncomfortably. We never asked you to keep track. $400,000, I said evenly. That doesn't include the mortgage I'm still paying on your house, the business contracts I arranged for David, or the referrals that provide your income. Her mouth opened then closed. She hadn't expected numbers. I'm not telling you this to shame you, I can tell. I need you to understand. I've been subsidizing your adult life, and somewhere along the way, you stopped seeing me as a mother and started seeing me as a resource. That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you called just to ask how I was? To ask how I'm coping without your father? Whether I'm lonely in this big house? Her face crumpled. Mom, when Patricia got a $20,000 ring and a cruise and I got a plastic flower, it wasn't about the money. It was about thought, care, consideration. You spent more time choosing Patricia's gift than mine. Tears slid down her cheeks, but I couldn't stop. Years of unspoken words finally spilled out. You treat Patricia like family because you have to earn her affection. With me, you just expect support, comfort, a blank check, without a second thought. I love you, Mom, she whispered. Do you? Or do you love what I can do for you? She had no answer. My phone rang, breaking the heavy silence. David's name glowed on the screen. Don't answer, Olivia said quickly. I picked up. Hello, David. Mrs. Hartwell. Olivia told me about the business sale. We need to talk about this as a family. It affects all of us. Actually, David, it doesn't. It affects me. It's my business to sell. But our contracts, our livelihood, your livelihood has been my responsibility for too long. It's time for you both to take care of yourselves. I ended the call. Olivia stared at me as if seeing a stranger. Mom, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious. The next morning, my phone started buzzing at 6:47 a.m. Olivia again and again. By the time I finished my coffee, she'd called 12 times. On the 13th call, I finally answered. Mom, please. We need to talk about this. We talked yesterday, I said calmly. I was clear. You can't destroy our lives over a Mother's Day gift. This has nothing to do with one gift, and you know it. Then what? What do you want from me? I want you to understand that I'm not your personal ATM. I want you to see me as a person, not a source of money. I do see you as a person, she insisted. For the first time in years, I believed only my own words, not hers. The day I finally said, enough. You're my mother, Olivia said, voice shaking. When was the last time you treated me like one? I asked. Silence. Mom, if you sell the business, we'll lose everything. The house, David's contracts, my clients. We'd have to start over. Yes, I said. And maybe that's exactly what you need. She hung up. 20 minutes later, she called again. Then again. I stopped counting after the 15th call. Each voicemail was another tactic. Pleading, bargaining, threatening, manipulating. Mom, please call me back. We can work this out. Mom, David's having chest pains from the stress. Do you want him in the hospital? Mom, I'm sorry about the flower. I'll make it up to you. People will think you're being cruel. Is that how you want to be remembered? By noon, she had called 28 times. Each ring was proof that she finally understood what I'd been saying. Her entire life rested on my generosity, and I was done being taken for granted. At 2:30, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Olivia, eyes red and swollen, with David behind her, jaw tight with anger. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. Mom, please, Olivia started. We need to talk like adults. We tried that yesterday, I said. You were more interested in rifling through my private documents and pretending to be my assistant. David stepped forward. Mrs. Hartwell, with all respect, this affects more than just you. We have a family to think about. So do I replied. And right now, what's best for my family is that you learn to stand on your own feet. Olivia's face crumpled. Mom, I'm begging you. Please don't do this. You're begging now, I said quietly. When was the last time you asked how I was doing? Invited me to dinner that wasn't a holiday obligation? Called just to say you love me? Her mouth opened then closed. We both knew the answer. You only call when you need something, I continued. You only visit when you want something. You only care when you're about to lose something. David's anger finally broke. This is ridiculous. You're punishing us for being successful, for building a life together. Successful? I gave a dry laugh. David, you're 37 and have never made a single mortgage payment on your own house. Olivia's entire income comes from work I arranged. You call that success? We call it family, Olivia whispered, tears streaking her face. Families help each other. Help goes both ways, I said. What have you done to help me? What have you contributed besides taking? She searched for an answer and finally said, I gave you grandchildren. No, I said softly. You moved 3 states away and visit twice a year. I haven't seen Tommy and Sarah in 8 months. Even David looked uncomfortable. You want to know what family looks like? Patricia's family calls her every week. They visit without being asked. They remember her birthday. They give thoughtful gifts because they pay attention to what she loves. That's why she got the ring and the cruise. That's why she's treated like someone who matters. Olivia sobbed, but I couldn't stop. Decades of hurt poured out. I spent 30 years building a business to give you security and opportunities. But somewhere along the way, you stopped appreciating it and started expecting it. You stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a resource. Mom, please, she whispered. I'll do better. I'll be better. You're sorry because you're scared, I said evenly. Not because you understand. David tugged her arm. Come on. She's made up her mind. But Olivia pulled free and looked at me with something I hadn't seen in years. Real vulnerability. Mom, what do you want from me? Tell me what I need to do to fix this. I looked at my daughter, 35 years old, crying on my doorstep, finally asking the right question. But it was too late. I want you to figure out who you are without my money, I said. I want you to learn to value relationships that aren't transactional. A new life, on my own terms. I want you to understand that love isn't about what someone can give you, I told her. And then what? If I do all that, will you change your mind? I shook my head. Olivia, I'm not selling the business to punish you. I'm selling it to free myself. I'm 67 years old, and I need to find out what life looks like when I'm not responsible for everyone else's choices. I stepped back and began to close the door. Mom, wait, she said, her voice breaking. I love you. I really do love you. I paused, hand on the knob. I love you too, Olivia. That's why I'm doing this. Then I closed the door and listened as she cried on the porch for 10 long minutes before finally driving away. 2 weeks later, the sale was final. 3 months after that, I sat on the porch of my new lakeside cottage, watching the sunset turn the water shades of gold and pink. The house was smaller than the one I'd left behind, but it felt more mine than anything I'd ever owned. No rooms echoing with disappointment, no memories of expectations that had gone unmet. The move had been surprisingly simple. 30 years of contracts and business files were boxed and stored. I kept only what mattered: a few photos, Harold's favorite books, and the quilt my mother sewed when Olivia was born. The cottage came furnished, simple, comfortable, and a garden waited for tending. I'd never had time for gardening before. Now I had nothing but time. Olivia hadn't called in 6 weeks. The silence hurt, but it brought clarity. I'd spent decades measuring my worth by her approval. Now I measured it by my own peace of mind. The business sale left me more than secure. I set up a trust for my grandchildren's education, money they would receive directly at 18, free of parental strings. And, as a final act of closure, I quietly paid off the mortgage on Olivia and David's house. Not a gift, just a clean severance. They owned it free and clear, but they knew no more checks would ever come from me. One evening, my phone rang. It was Susan, my neighbor across the lake. Over the past month, we'd grown close, sharing morning walks and evening wine. Colleen, are you free for dinner tomorrow? My son and daughter-in-law are visiting. I'd love for you to meet them. I'd like that, I said, and realized I meant it. Their family bond was everything mine had never been. Natural, reciprocal, full of genuine affection instead of obligation. After we hung up, I poured a glass of wine and walked to the dock. The lake reflected the last streaks of light while a family of ducks glided past in perfect formation. My phone buzzed, a message from Margaret, my attorney. Thought you'd want to know. David's landscaping business filed for bankruptcy yesterday. Olivia's looking for work at the elementary school. How are you doing? I stared at the screen before replying, I'm doing well. Thank you for letting me know. I felt sadness for them, but not guilt. They were adults making their own choices, just as I was finally making mine. Across the water, a loon called, its cry echoing through the hills. I'd never heard that sound before moving here. There were so many things I'd never experienced while I was busy being responsible for everyone else. Tomorrow I'd start a pottery class, next week a book club. For the first time in decades, my life and my love belonged entirely to me. The letter that changed everything. The little things in my new life were mine alone, chosen because I enjoyed them, not because someone else needed me to. The strangest part was how light I felt. For years, I'd carried the weight of other people's problems, their bad choices, their financial messes. I once believed that weight was love, but it wasn't. Real love, I've learned, sometimes means saying no. Sometimes it means letting people struggle so they can grow. Sometimes it means walking away so they can find their own strength. 6 months later, a letter arrived. Not a text, not an email, but a handwritten letter. The return address was Olivia's, yet the handwriting looked different. Careful, deliberate. Dear Mom, I've been trying to write this for months. I wanted to ask you to come back, to fix things. But I finally understand that what we had before wasn't healthy for any of us. I set the letter down, drew a long breath, then continued. David and I are divorcing. You've probably heard about the bankruptcy and that I'm working at the school. It's been the hardest year of my life, but also the most honest. I had to learn who I am without your money, without your safety net. I'm not writing to ask for anything. I'm writing to say I'm sorry for taking you for granted, for treating you like an obligation instead of a person, for wasting years being angry over things that weren't your fault. I understand now why you sold the business. You weren't punishing me. You were freeing both of us. I just wish it hadn't taken me this long to see it. Family isn't about what you can give or take. It's about showing up, paying attention, and caring for someone simply for who they are. I hope you're happy. You deserve it. Love, Olivia. P.S. I kept the plastic flower. It's on my kitchen windowsill. Every time I see it, I remember the look on your face that day, and the moment I realized I'd broken your heart. I'm sorry it took me so long to care about fixing it. I sat on the porch for a long time after reading, watching the sun slide into the lake. Later, I went inside and began my reply. Dear Olivia, thank you for your letter. It means more to me than you know. But I didn't mail it that day, or the next. Some wounds need time to heal before they can be reopened safely. Some relationships need space before they can be rebuilt on truth instead of obligation. Maybe someday we'd find our way back to each other. For now, I was content. Free from guilt, free from manipulation, free from the exhausting job of trying to buy love that should have been given freely. At 67, I was finally living my own life, and it was enough. Your turn. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever faced something similar? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. Thank you for watching and listening to my story. Before you go, check out the 2 stories on screen now. They're audience favorites, and I think they'll surprise you.